LucasArts, now revived as Lucasfilms Games, is an extremely influential game development group, making tons of popular and memorable games. Being a branch of Lucasfilm, I'm sure most of you think of Knights of the Old Republic or The Force Unleashed when you hear LucasArts. You may even think about the cult classic Monkey Island, which was developed and published by LucasArts. Many games from their catalog fall between the cracks, though, and become forgotten gems.
LucasArts began with a game called Ball Blazer in 1984 for the Atari 7800, the Apple II, and the Commodore 64. Ball Blazer is a one-on-one sports-like game being a mix of basketball and soccer. It's interesting to see such a popular game developer so closely connected to George Lucas, not starting with a game revolving around Star Wars. Anyway, the game is very fast-paced for such an old game. It's even in a 3D environment, which is really novel for the time.
A ball is put in the center of the field. The point of the game is to grab the ball and throw it in between the goalposts on the other player's side. Ball Blazer is also in first person. The game plays a little weird. You don't control the direction of your character. It always is on the ball, which doesn't take too much time to get used to. In 1997, a remake/follow-up game was made by the name of Master Blazer, and was released on the MS-DOS. A true remake of the original game was made for the PlayStation by the name of Ball Blazer Champions.
The second game developed was named Rescue on Fractalus. It's a first-person flying game for the Atari and Commodore 64. The reception for the game was not as strong as the first. What is important about this game, though, is that the first-person flying style later helped the initial idea and development of Star Wars Rogue Squadron for the Nintendo 64. The Eidolon was the next game by LucasArts. It's very simple. It's a first-person game where you explore a cave maze. The point of the game is to escape the maze, obviously. Eidolon was released in 1985.
Habitat, LucasArts' first major game, is the first massive multiplayer online role-playing game, or MMORPG for short. This is extremely impressive for 1986. Games like the Old Republic or World of Warcraft can thank Habitat for initially developing this style of gaming. Habitat is no longer available to play, of course, but there are fan-made remakes named Neo Habitat, which is currently being developed.
Maniac Mansion was the next major game. This is a point-and-click adventure game from 1987. The main point is to solve different puzzles and survive the dangerous mansion. It has 5 separate endings considering what you do in-game. There are plenty of B-movie influences as well, including a giant man-eating plant and other monsters inspired by older movies. The main idea for Maniac Mansion, while being developed, was to create a game that finds a good balance between tension and horror.
Loom was a 1990 point-and-click game which used the engine first developed for Maniac Mansion. Compared to the game beforehand, Loom has a complex story having a full 30-minute audio drama to explain the story and the world in which you play. 2 sequels were planned and had the titles of Forge and The Fold, which would have starred the main characters from Loom.
The Secret of Monkey Island was the first in the Monkey Island installment, and an extremely popular LucasArts game before they mainly developed Star Wars games. First developed for the MS-DOS, Monkey Island was so popular that it was given re-releases for the PlayStation 3, and most recently Steam. Monkey Island was another point-and-click adventure game and was first to use dialogue trees, which gave the world more life. Monkey Island is a pirate story following Guybrush Threepwood and follows his adventure to become a pirate.
Star Wars for the NES was the first Star Wars game developed by LucasArts in 1991. This is a notoriously difficult game which was criticized for its lack of lives and occasionally going off of the source material. This is also where the notorious Vader turning into a scorpion comes from, too.
Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, came out only a year after the original Monkey Island. The sequel is much the same as the first and didn't do too much to try new things. Monkey Island would receive 2 more games after this, and would also be referenced by other LucasArts games.
Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis was the first Indiana Jones game developed by LucasArts, which was its own standalone story. Fate of Atlantis is another point-and-click adventure game, which takes place after the events of Last Crusade. The main story is pretty self-explanatory. Indiana Jones is in search of the lost city of Atlantis. First released in 1992 by CD, and later re-released for the Wii in 2009 with the Staff of Kings to tie in with the release of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
In the same year, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back released for the NES. It's similar to its predecessor, having much of the same issues. An NES release for Return of the Jedi was never released because the Super Star Wars series began for the SNES. These 3 were much better than their predecessors, but were well known for being extremely difficult but well made.
Day of the Tentacle was next, and was the sequel to Maniac Mansion. The engine used for the first game has continued to be implemented and would later be used for Sam & Max. Day of the Tentacle was re-released for the Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
Zombies Ate My Neighbors, a classic run-and-gun SNES game. The main point of the game is to kill as many zombies as you can to protect the different areas. Like Maniac Mansion before it, it incorporates humor and horror well. Zombies also has a 2-player mode and a large assortment of weapons. The game didn't do well initially, but was critically acclaimed, and re-released on many consoles as well.
Sam & Max Hit the Road was the next release in the point-and-click adventure games. Sam & Max was a mystery game like Maniac Mansion, the main focus being to solve different puzzles. Sam and Max were popular characters being a detective dog and animated rabbit, which were able to bounce off each other really well. Sam and Max were praised for its well-done animation and well-done dialogue.
Ghoul Patrol was the 1994 sequel to Zombies Ate My Neighbors. The game stars the same characters as the first. The main focus of the game is to fight zombies throughout 5 worlds to save their neighborhood. It's much the same as the first game, but is much less known compared to the popular first.
By 1995, LucasArts began to focus more on Star Wars games, starting with Dark Forces and later developing Shadows of the Empire and Rogue Squadron. Being affiliated with George Lucas and Lucasfilms, it makes sense that the game company would soon focus more on Lucasfilm-related games. This is a double-edged sword. Tons of great Star Wars games came out, but it forced less games like Zombies or Monkey Island to come out.
After a number of Star Wars games released alongside The Phantom Menace, Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine was released in 1999 for the Nintendo 64, Windows, and Game Boy. Set in 1947, the game gets the chance to have the villains be the Soviet Union in the Cold War, rather than the German soldiers from the majority of the series. The game was not given great scores due to the weird controls, which causes the game to suffer.
Being a proud owner of the Game Boy version of the Infernal Machine, I can agree that it's not the best game I've ever played. In 2003, Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb was released for the Xbox and PlayStation 2. The game takes place in China and is a prequel to the Temple of Doom. Emperor's Tomb was given better reviews compared to its predecessor, and in 2018 was given a Steam release.
The majority of games that released after the mid-2000s were Star Wars or Indiana Jones related. Games like The Force Unleashed and Battlefront became huge hits, which people love to look back to this day. Unfortunately, the last few releases by the company weren't great. Games like Connect Star Wars and Angry Birds Star Wars took up the last of LucasArts' great catalog. The final game released was a phone game called The Tiny Death Star. How sad.
At this point, until the return of Lucasfilm's games, the Star Wars brand is held by EA, which has been good and bad. The new Battlefront games have been given 50-50 for most. Squadrons and Jedi Fallen Order have both been given great reviews. Infamously, LucasArts did have plans for one last game before they retired, Star Wars 1313. 1313 was planned to be a gritty look at the Star Wars franchise, and was going to follow a young adult Boba Fett collecting bounties in the Undercity of Coruscant. 1313 was described as fast-paced, focusing on weapons combat, and may have been the first adult-oriented Star Wars game according to rumors. The game was put on hold due to the Disney buyout and reboot. The game is still on hold and could one day come back, hopefully.
Guess we can hope and wait. It's great to see the return of such an influential developer. With the news comes new hope that we'll get great games and maybe even the return of older franchises that haven't been touched in a while. LucasArts and all their games, iconic to obscure, will always be a staple of many of our memories. Stay curious.
Join us again next time when we once again go obscure.